Okay, welcome to part 2 of private lesson 28. And what I want to do before you get into the lesson here is I want to provide more detail into the application of the fighting system. Because I demonstrated in these videos, moving off the line for the different distances. And so there are 3 distances that you'll fight at. And the first, of course, is close quarter. And I explained that ultimately, whether you launch an attack or you launch a counterattack, you'll be in close quarter at some point. So in close quarter combat, you only have time to block and strike simultaneously because the person doesn't have to move his body to hit you. He only has to move his arms. So you only have time to move your arms in defense. So you want to block and strike simultaneously to turn the fight in your favor. That way, you're not blocking continually and eventually he'll overwhelm you. By blocking and striking simultaneously, you stop the attack immediately. That allows you to continue your offensive attack once the person's phased or disabled. The second distance is intermediate. That's where the person only has to move his movement forward half a step to hit you. So you only have time to move that half step back. Now keep in mind that we're not talking about your step, we're talking about his step. So if he's bigger than you are, his half step is going to be deeper than your half step would be. So you have to, again, work off the distance that he has to cover and he can cover as makes your defensive movement to mirror that. And then you have extended range. With the extension range attack, he can lunge forward with a full step or with a full kick. And again, you mirror that movement. And so you can only move away from him defensively, effectively, the distance that he has to travel to hit you. And so I just wanted to reinforce that when you practice your techniques, understanding that the distance that you are from your opponent determines the defensive movement that you'll use. Okay? Enjoy the video. We'll see you in your next lesson. And remember this. Once I go from a fighting stance and engage him, either if I hit him, let's say a lead hand strike, in a horse stance or a stop hit, once I transition to the seisan, I'm in close quarter. He doesn't have to move very far to hit me. Most of the time, he has to move his arms. So this is close quarter combat. In close quarter combat, we block and strike simultaneously. Okay? When we get into intermediate combat, where all I have to do is be this far away to get Bob. Bob only can move that distance. And so that's why if I'm here and Bob launches that attack, I move away from him this way, or I move away from him this way. If I'm in a seisan dachi, okay, I move away from him this way. Again, intermediate range. Here is where most people start sparring. And so from here, I launch the front kick. And so you notice that Bob has lots of time for me to come in. No matter how fast I am, he can move that distance and defend himself. So what I want to do here, put Bob back, is I want to demonstrate for you from the rear those offline techniques. So if I'm here in the seisan dachi, and you can see now, I've got myself centered here. So when Bob attacks with that lunging technique, when I move this way and block, you can see Bob's going right past me, which allows me to hit him. And again, if I come this way, I'm off the line. If I come this way, I'm off the line. So all those movements work for extended range fighting. And of course, then you have the bringing your feet together from here. So from here, in the intermediate range, Bob comes to throw that reverse punch or lead hand strike, a short front kick. I come this way, and you notice that when I block, I'm off his center line. So it's easier to block and all I have to do is sweep forward and counterattack. Now, with the hook leg stances, there's a couple ways to do that. They start out as a seisandachi. So I'm here, and you'll see this in Wansu. What I do is I come this way, okay? I go 90 degrees. Notice that Bob is going past me here. So I'm facing Bob, and he attacks at that, at long distance range. And what I do is I come from here and block and strike. See, in Wansu, it's done as a hammer strike to the groin. They do that, so you want to know what it is. It looks like a downward block. But that's what it is. It's the hook leg, stance, defensively creating distance, blocking and striking. The other hook leg stance we have is done from the seisandachi. And what you're doing here is you're doing forward. And you saw this in the pin-on go-down. You saw me throw the punch, and then I came up here, okay? That's the hook leg stance. That's not the counterattack that works in the hook leg stance. And so from here, what I do is I come across this way. Notice he's off the line, and I block. So from here he attacks, I block. And then I can counterattack from here. I can step through, I can throw him, whatever I want to do. And we'll get into that in later classes about putting all these things together and practicing that way. But you see now, intermediate range, I can only move my foot that far, but it takes me off the line of attack. Okay. So, that pretty much, sets it up, Bob, for that defensive movement. And again, if I'm here with Bob, and he attacks, and I drop back, you always want to double block, and you want to practice going downward block and outward block, and then outward block and downward block. So you need to put all these things together and understand what you're doing. So from here is we're going to practice this in intermediate range from the fighting stance. I'm going to go here, outward and downward block, lead hand hit, move, kick, and then you move off the line. Okay? That's on the attack mode. So from here, he comes in, he attacks, I block, I counterattack, okay? And it's ineffective. He absorbs it, he's getting ready to counterattack, then you egress. That's what you're doing in all the kata when you practice doing this method. Anytime you go 45 degrees in a kata, you're egressing around your opponent who's absorbed your attack. So I come in from here, bang, 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 he's done good. I'm egressing away, and now I can counterattack his flank. So you need to practice that. And when you do it defensively, when you step back and block, and there is no opening, that's why you transition off that line of attack. So he'll go, because he doesn't know you're going to move. Let's face it, if you and I were fighting, and you thought I was going to move off the line, you wouldn't attack that way. So you think your attack is going to be successful. So I move back, absorb the attack, I can't counter, so I move off the line, and then you'll keep coming, and I'll hit you as I go by. And if I don't get that opening, I'm going to transition away, and we can set back up and we can fight from this angle. So I hope that makes sense. And I want you to understand the important part of our movement. It's just not doing the moves. There's a purpose for it. And there's a reason why I have you practice these defensive movements with the blocks. And then, of course, the egresses, and of course, the final egress, crossing away from it. Okay? I hope you found this interesting. And train hard. I look forward to working with you some more. Take care.